After about 5 weeks of strength training, conditioning, and individual drills, the Redskins stand poised along with the rest of the NFL to begin OTAs next week, which means the real work begins and the helmets are coming back on. Wouldn't be the Redskins, though, if they didn't do this under a cloud of controversy, and a new poll about the Redskins name from the Washington Post definitely delivered on that front. We'll talk about that, plus you might have thought RG3 leaving down would slow the flow of articles written about him, but you'd be wrong. Jason Reid's latest on the puzzling plummet of RG3 is a topic of discussion, as is Sports Illustrated's new piece on Josh Norman. It's a media-heavy day, so stick with us. Can you take me higher? It's the Hog Style.
It's the Hog Style.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back with us. Pleasure to have you here on this dreary day in the capital D.C. area, but we are going to forge ahead bravely as always. My name is Sean Conti, and I'm joined by the whole crew today, which is Mr. Steve Thomas.
I'm here, and
you gotta do your best Creed, Steve.
I cannot sing. I can play
All of us have to do our
guitar.
best
I
Creed.
can not sing. Sorry, I don't sing. We already had Scott Stapp in studio anyway. There in the intro, so I think we're good. Steve
That's
does
right.
not sing.
Well, Steve's no Scott Stapp.
And
That's okay. Mr. Robbie Duncan's also here, and I bet he has a good impression for us.
Will you take me higher?
Oh,
Wow.
that was way better.
Wow.
That's the best Stapp we've had all day. Very nice.
Thank
What do you
you.
think, Mr. Alex Zeese?
We're all right over.
That sounded more
Nice.
like
You went with the that's my favorite
that
Creed
sounded
song.
more like the Cookie Monster.
A little bit.
There's not a huge difference between them if you really think about it.
Well, if you've seen Scott Stapp lately.
Yeah, well, considering the depths that Scott Stapp has sunk to recently, I'm glad that none of us are him. Frankly.
Yeah. Isn't he living in a motel?
Yeah,
or
he's
something?
like homeless and bipolar and a drug addict and he has not gone higher. Put it that way.
No. Well, yes, he has.
Well,
No,
he
yeah,
has.
actually, people did take him higher.
He's definitely
Just not
gotten
the right
higher.
kind of higher.
He was wearing one of those Laramie Tunsil
Oh,
gas
yeah.
masks, that's for sure. All right, well, we got lots on the docket today, ladies and gentlemen. Anything new today in life, by the way, before we get right into our full agenda here?
I got a haircut. That's about it.
You do. You look
I
dashing.
notice.
I
Yeah,
made
very
the
nice.
I
You look
made
good. Back from vacation, ready to
I
get back
made
to
the
work.
crew wait 2 hours because my internet was goofed up this morning. So sorry to the
Well,
crew.
yeah.
Yeah, ladies and gentlemen at home, Steve is one of those guys that schedules internet repairs for on recording time. He's one of those geniuses. You know a couple people like
Wasn't
that
my
in your life.
Yeah, I got nothing going on at 10 a.m. Saturday.
Right. Well, let's dive right in, guys. We want to start with this puzzling plummet of RG3. This is an article written by Jason Reid. It sounds kind of like a Roald Dahl poem,
Yeah, a little bit.
but it is a total analysis of RG3's end of his tenure here in Washington, and a little bit about how he's doing over there in Cleveland so far. So you guys all read this article and did you take anything major from it?
Is anyone shocked that Jason Reid wrote this?
Little bit.
Well, Reid's always had an agenda.
I don't know who to credit, but yeah, somebody pointed this out on the blog that Jason Reid has written 25 articles about Robert Griffin since he last started a football game.
Jesus,
and you know
really?
what? Not one of those articles has a single thing positive to say about him.
No, of course not.
That's the thing with
But
the article.
I actually did think this was a very good article.
It was well written.
for Jason Reid, and I'm not a Jason Reid fan.
But you have to take everything he writes with a grain of salt. It was very well written, but it was a very one-sided. And Mike Shanahan is a guy whose words change with the wind, whenever it will make him look better. And we've ignored the fact that, Mike Shanahan's the one that played Robert Griffin in the Seattle game. Mike Shanahan praised Robert Griffin publicly when he came here and said it was a great move and all this. And now all of a sudden it's terrible. Clearly Griffin was in the wrong. Nobody can dispute that without a doubt. But this article painted a very one-sided picture, I thought.
Yeah, I mean, I agree completely. And is it safe to assume that Shanahan was most likely the primary source for a lot of this stuff? Alex and I were chatting about this a little while ago.
So.
I mean, if you're talking about stuff that was, he's writing about stuff that happened in a room, in a meeting with Shanahan and maybe Dan Snyder together, when he talks about the part where Griffin goes up and he puts the 4 things on the board, which is that unacceptable, bottom line, he lists 4 things that Griffin wrote on the board. You got to expect that Shanahan was the source of that. So that's going to, by nature, make this a one-sided article.
Yep. It's just the bias was too strong. It's always the same thing with Jason Reid. The same stuff kept coming out of his mouth. He'd blare up on Twitter, just blowing up everyone's Twitter feed, bashing Robert and talking about the drama, and it just won't let it go. It's so annoying, really.
Well, I agree with you that he's very anti-Griffin, but I will say that if you go past the Mike Shanahan part of the story, there's some really interesting stuff there in terms of interactions with Warren Moon, Doug Williams, Jason Campbell about just the nature of the African-American quarterback and how Griffin was trying to move past that and couldn't once he started to struggle and started focusing more on his brand rather than being a pro. That stuff was very interesting to me, and I think he is, I think Jason Reid's on the right track there, that was what caused Griffin's real downfall was he cared more about Subway than he cared about the playbook for a while.
Yeah, and I think that's where Griffin is at fault, certainly, because I think, number one, we've had enough people on our show, insiders, tell us that was the case. Doc Walker said it.
Right.
I think, Rick Snyder said it to us more than once. I mean, so I think there's an air of truth to it. But a couple things is, number one, we don't know who Griffin was talking to. Maybe he was talking to other African-American players and they weren't interviewed for the piece. We don't know. We didn't get his side to it. And the other thing is, what I can't get past is, Reid and Shanahan blame Griffin for things like that meeting. Well, you know what? Mike Shanahan's the 60-year-old, 2-time Super Bowl winning head coach. When you have an insolent player, what you do is you sit him down and you say, this is how it is. I'm the coach. We'll work with you, but this is my team, and you work it out. And so I have to fault Shanahan for letting it get to that situation.
I kind of understand where you're coming from. That, like, why, when that meeting happens, why doesn't Mike Shanahan then just say to Griffin, we'll let you have your piece, but just know X, Y, Z about how this is the structure of this team.
I'm the coach and you're the 22-year-old.
And it didn't seem like that happened. Yeah.
And the article shows that Shanahan, instead of doing that, he goes off and runs to Dan Snyder and complains about it. So you kind of see that, like, they were sort of communicating through Dan Snyder. You don't want to make Dan Snyder the conduit that communication flows through.
No, that's like trying to play a game of telephone talking through a sewer pipe.
Or like,
exactly.
Or like going to dad for something, he says no, or ask your mom, and you go to mom.
Exactly. That's a better analogy.
Well, yeah,
I mean, it just doesn't it makes Shanahan look weak.
Yeah, I thought it made him look weak. And, if Shanahan had a problem with Dan Snyder, he should have gone to Dan Snyder and said, back off. I've got Robert Griffin, and I will take care of him. And the other thing is, contractually, Shanahan had control of the roster, ultimately. So if he didn't want to draft Griffin, he should have stood up and said, no, I have it, and I'll quit. If you don't let me have what I've contractually bargained for, that's what he should have done.
Yeah. No, I agree completely. Well, my final thoughts on this whole article are Jason Reid is one of those guys in the DC media that ran Robert Griffin out of town.
Sure.
So for him to write an article like this after the fact, and it sort of starts disingenuous because he sort of heaps praise on at the beginning when he's talking about Griffin playing, his early signs of him with the Browns, and then he sort of goes immediately into why it doesn't matter because he actually sucks and all of this, he's the worst.
Right.
So it like anytime Jason Reid writes some big analysis like this, I just kind of have to turn my brain off because you're part of the reason things got so nasty and so negative so fast.
Especially in the media.
In the media, exactly. So, that's kind of my final thought on that is that I don't really listen to anything Jason Reid has to say, especially about Robert Griffin.
Well, and it's worthwhile pointing out that this is the first article that came out of this new The Undefeated website, and so he's trying to gin up some controversy to get attention for it.
Yeah, that's a great point, too.
Yeah, he's
a tool.
He's faded into the mist before this article came out. Like no one, he had been absent on Twitter, hadn't posted anything. He went to ESPN and no one even remembers him. Basically, like he was bigger in the Washington Post, and now he's with ESPN. He's nobody. So he puts out this article just to kind of jump back into the spotlight and bash Robert in the process again.
Yeah. Well, and you've got his failed radio show, Robbie.
Oh, yeah.
In that list of Jason Reid failures, because
the reason why we started this podcast.
Yes. I think it's fair to say that now. The reason we started this podcast is we knew we could do better than Jason Reid.
That is true, and
damn it, we were right.
And I had Alex.
We're still going strong.
Alex had put that on the website, the draft of the website, folks, and I had Alex take it off because at the time I was worried that we didn't want to bash Jason Reid. Well, now I'm fine with bashing Jason Reid. So yes, Jason, if you're listening, you are the reason because we decided we four AM at 5 at the time could do a better hour of radio than you, and it turns out we can.
Right.
Yeah. Also, please like and subscribe.
My final thought is the article had some good points, but Jason Reid's a tool, and I can't take anything he does seriously. That's my final thought.
Yeah. No, there were some very cool little tidbits in that article that I loved. Not the Mike Shanahan stuff, but like I said, the Warren Moon stuff. The player who said Robert still doesn't know how to do a 7-step drop in his third year. That was interesting, but
right.
I'm also against anonymous sources, so I do have a problem with that.
The Robert Griffin talks and banter had kind of faded away up until this article came back out. And now it's Robert Griffin and Redskins again, and it's going to take forever. Robert's never going to escape. There's always going to be a Robert Griffin cloud just hovering over the Redskins for
a couple of years. Look what happened with Mark Sanchez. There was that with the Jets for a couple of years until he went to 4 other teams and failed.
Yeah, we can expect more of this for a while.
Yeah, now he's going to go fail in Denver.
Until probably he's out of the league completely.
Yep.
Yeah. But it's safe to say next time Jason Reid writes an article, we will not be reading it with arms wide open. Sorry, guys. Just had to work that in there. Let's move on to our next article. So we finished with the Jason Reid thing. Thank God. Let's push that to the side. Let's move on to a slightly more positive, shall we say, article by Sports Illustrated. They had a great profile on Josh Norman. Talked about him coming to D.C., seeing some of the sites, meeting some of the movers and shakers, and a little bit more about his overall role with the team. So great article, really cool. Anything major you guys wanted to call out up front? I thought it was kind of cool talking about him meeting the Pelosi's and not knowing who they were.
He just seems really excited to be living in this area and being part of the Washington Redskins. It's very refreshing to see.
Well, I was just going to say, to that point, think about it. This is a kid who played for Coastal, not a big media market team. Right. Then he went to Carolina, which is a team that's gotten a lot of press for being good recently, but that's also not a huge media market. Now he's finally in the spotlight place of his career.
It probably does help him to be in that eastern corridor the whole time, though, in terms of culture.
Absolutely. I think you're
probably... I mean, he's as close as he could get to home, and not be home. I liked how the article pointed out how important his family is to him. Because not a lot of the players would bring his mother, would bring their mother and their brothers along, and then give them a vote. The article talked about how he kicked Scott McLuhan and everybody out of the room at one point, and he asked his family for a vote. Should we come to D.C.? And that was after his family said yes. That was when he agreed to come, and I thought that was really cool. In a day and age when we have so many players out on social media, out in clubs, flashing money, getting in trouble, smoking dope in cars, and wearing gas masks and everything else. Here we have a guy who brings his mom to a business meeting and is concerned about her and concerned about how about the fit and about how the team culture is. It just seems like he's a really great guy, homebody, and everything that a pro football player should be.
I agree with you and I love that he didn't know who Nancy Pelosi was, which is hilarious to me as a political junkie. But
although, give me your estimate on what percentage of Americans could tell you who she is and knew
5%
what her position in Congress used to be.
I'd say about
5%. Yeah, see, you're probably even
Jay
being
Leno
generous.
would point that stuff out. He'd go out on the streets and ask questions just like that, and no one would know the answer.
Well, I was just curious whether
you realize that's also edited.
I was just curious whether he met the zombie version of Nancy Pelosi or the human version of Nancy Pelosi.
There's a non-zombie version.
Yeah, they've kind of merged into one.
That's true. Maybe it's just a zombie version now.
I mean, the odds are he probably knew her husband more because her husband was a owner of one of the UFL teams way back when.
This is something I did not know about. So remind us about this. So it's a defunct team.
Jay Gruden was a coach there for a year. It lasted like 3 seasons. And Nancy Pelosi's husband, who's a multi-billionaire or multi-millionaire or something like that, he owned one of the teams in California that failed. They all failed, but
so is it right?
Yeah.
But this was a fast defunct team.
Yeah. But he had
so not a smart investment
as a quarterback.
I bet you Josh Norman's too young to know any of that, honestly.
Well, he's 28.
Yeah.
He would have been right around that, right?
Maybe.
This was only like
he's
4 years ago.
26, I think.
Regardless, I mean,
I don't know, 26 years old.
I'm amazed.
I don't expect you to know very much.
I'm amazed that Nancy Pelosi knew who Josh Norman was, honestly. That's what's more surprising.
Well, her family are football junkies.
Oh, are they really?
And she's local, so she is a Redskins fan.
I didn't know she was a Redskins fan.
Yeah, she grew up in Maryland.
Well, now I may have to.
That actually kind of surprises me about her.
She's a fan.
I mean, she would have grown up in Maryland. Redskins or Colts, probably.
If Nancy, if you're listening, please go root for the Colts. I'm just begging you, or the Ravens. Go root for the Ravens. We'd be better off.
No, Nancy, don't listen to him. Stay here with us.
We need as much help as we can get, Steve, for a new stadium.
Yeah, exactly. You're right. See, don't go burning bridges, Steve. Yeah. Well, anything else you guys want to call out about this Josh Norman article? I mean, I think most of all, this just highlights the true excitement about him coming here. And this was a very, very flattering article. Hopefully it wasn't disingenuous. But from all accounts, I mean, he seems like a really great person, a family guy, like Steve said, and a great player.
He's got an edge to him, but he's still pretty humble, too. Mm-hmm. Like, he knows he has to fight for everything that he gets.
I mean, I think the edge thing is like his temper, right? I mean, he's shown that he can get rattled emotionally in games. So, you see him against Beckham. I think that's where the edge comes from. But at his heart, at his core, I think articles like this point out a great fact, which is that he's a good person. You can piss him off successfully. He'll have to work on that.
It was just pretty amazing to me that he was so rattled by the franchise tender being revoked. Like, he was, hurt big time.
Well, I mean, that's a great point to bring up too. I mean, just to say, I mean, Carolina, they refused to pull the trigger on what the Redskins pulled the trigger on. They didn't want to give him over $12 million. I think that was where they tapped out.
Why that was.
I think that's what
the
article
pointed out that Carolina has never spent over something like 3.8% of its salary cap on the defensive backfield, on cornerbacks. And that contract for Josh Norman is going to blow that out of the water. And so what you're talking about is the GM's philosophy on roster construction. Because don't forget, they've got some really talented Luke Kuechly and a bunch of other guys in the front seven that are kind of the heart and soul of their defense. Oh, yeah. And so I think it was for them, it was a salary. It truly was strictly a salary cap issue. Whereas Scott McLuhan said, hey, we need help desperately. We'll be happy to jack up our salary cap percentages on him.
Well, and we had money to blow at that point, and we had some players we could still cut, so we were in a slightly more, I guess, conducive situation.
If you look at how Carolina's always built their offenses and defenses, it's all their investing is in talented linemen on both sides of the ball. That's kind of what they do.
And by the way, Josh.
Well, we will see.
If you're listening, Sean,
go ahead.
Our buddy Sean here is a Carolina Coastal alum. So if you're going to talk to an independent media outlet, there's only one that you should be talking to, and that's the Hogsty.
right here, Josh. CCU. It'll be like coming home, bro. We got to get you on the show.
I mean, you would have been going to school around the same time.
We would have overlapped by 2 years there, Josh. So we might have been out at the same bar some night, or been. I probably sat in the back of the class all high and slept through it at some point with you. So please be on the show, man. We'll talk about school. It'll be money.
Don't sit in the back of the Redskins classrooms high.
Yeah, don't do that, please. We need you here. All right, well, let's move on from that to the next article that was in the news.
Oh, man, the look on your face as we're about to bring this up was just priceless.
Yeah, it's like, it's got to be brought up because it's worth talking about, but it's just such a
you look like
physical
you're smelling
pain.
Somebody took a dump in your room.
Yes.
Yeah.
If you can't see me, ladies, I look like there's shit on my upper lip right now. That's what I look like. So let's get right into it. You guessed it. Another day has passed, so the inevitable has happened. The Redskins are back in the news for the name change drama. This time because a Washington Post conducted poll of 504, I believe was the number, Native Americans nationwide over a number of demographic classes. This is, of course, how they described the poll. Shows that 9 in 10, quote-unquote, do not care about the Redskins being named the Redskins. There were a couple other questions in there, like, do you find it offensive? Or do you think it should change? Basically, 3 different ways of asking the same thing. The answers were slightly different, but at no point did any more than 7 out of 10 people. At no point did more than 3 out of 10 people say basically they wanted the name to change. So this poll would seemingly suggest that the overwhelming majority of Native Americans either don't care or like the name, don't need it to change. Now, immediately after this poll came out, there were so many pieces that came out criticizing how it was conducted and the logistical details of how the poll was, of the poll itself. So, what were you guys' thoughts on this?
I think it shows what we've been saying, what the pro Redskins name people have been saying, which is that while there is a very vocal minority of people who take umbrage with the name, the vast majority of Native Americans and the public at large recognize it for what it is, which is, is it an antiquated term? Sure, but is it a slur? No, it's not. And the team itself means it as an honor. And what was interesting is a lot of the Native American comments that the comments that the Native Americans made to the Washington Post, a lot of them were comments to the effect of, let's stop worrying about a name and worrying about drug abuse, worrying about education and the economy. They recognize that this is a stupid football team. It's not that important. And furthermore, I kind of like it because it's we call each other Redskins, and I kind of like it. So my only problem with it was I thought the poll question was a little oddly worded. Because there was the second part of it was something like, it doesn't bother you. Do you take offense to the name, or doesn't it bother you? It was a little bit of a weird question, sort of.
They had, I think, 4 different questions with all to do with not just the Redskins, but Native American mascots. They had a question about. They had a question about if someone called you the word Redskin, would you be offended? And obviously, that got a higher yes rate versus are you offended by the team having that name?
Right, I can see that.
That's understandable, I think. It's no different than if somebody, goes up to, I don't know what ethnicity anyone here is, but I think Robbie's Scottish. If I went up to you and said, hey, Scotty, that's not meant as a compliment necessarily.
Scottish and German.
Yeah.
You can call me
I'm American. Yeah. I don't know and I don't care what my background is. I'm white European, basically. I don't care. I'm an American, and that's all I care about.
Right, but there are multiple millions of people who understand their own history, and
I think it's dumb. We're all Americans. That's my view. Sure, that's all I care about.
Well, so let me ask you guys this then, to get back to the poll. So Chris Russell the other day on 106.7's talking about this poll, and he's talking about how this was a poll of 504 people, right, nationwide, conducted by telephone.
Right.
His major complaint with this poll is that with the telephone poll, you're basically depending on the honesty of the self-identification of the person you reach. So if you reach somebody, they say they're a Native American, you have to accept that they're a Native American. He takes major issue with this because, according to him, there's no way of corroborating this. There's no way of proving this. Of course, this is the way polls are done. I just would like to point out to him, there's not really any other way to do it unless you're going to genetically test every single respondent. But his complaint basically is that there's no way of proving this. There's no way of corroborating this data. And 504 people isn't enough. So do you guys feel like that's a valid complaint about this, or is he missing the point?
Well, I mean, the Washington Post is pretty left-wing based, isn't it?
Yeah,
their
editorial
it's not like,
board said they're against the name. So
it's not like they're a conservative newspaper that sides with the Redskins name.
Right.
I mean,
it's a great point.
They cover the Redskins, but that's because they're in the same media market and they have to. But yeah, I would think that they would have done everything they could have to prove it the other way. And because they did the poll, they had to post the results.
Well, I think Chris Russell's being utterly ridiculous. This isn't this isn't a government censor, okay? They did a poll. Like you said, there's no genetic testing, and it's just utterly ridiculous. I think that's just an excuse to tear down the results that are contrary to the left-wing agenda with regard to the Redskin name. Like Mike Florio, who hates the Reds, everything about the Redskins, from Pro Football Talk, he wrote 5 posts in a day about right after the poll came out. 5 different posts. It's just crazy. I mean, the man's going to have a heart attack, over it.
Well, and let me say this: 500 people surveyed. Some people are saying that's not a
sample.
In terms of polling, that is a statistical sample. Like, Sean, you worked in nonprofit for a while. I don't know if you guys did any polling, but I've worked in various political offices. This is a completely valid scientific poll.
Yes, I would agree.
So I don't see how anyone could take issue with that. In terms of how do you self-identify, there's no better way to do this. Sorry.
Well,
I agree completely. Every poll is going to depend on the honesty of the people that you're asking.
Right.
There's no poll that isn't.
I mean, there's no way to do a poll and know everyone's mentally fit to answer your questions. So.
Well, and I would point out that the people they quoted in the article that was accompanying it, that specifically identified as being a member of a certain tribe. That's different than like me. Like I have, like an 8th Cherokee or something to me. I don't identify as being Native American because it's silly. And I just said I'm an American. But, I'm not a member of a tribe. I have a relative who was a Cherokee Indian somewhere 100 years ago. That doesn't make me Native American. But if you're a member of a tribe, that's certainly very valid to say I am a Native American. Right,
because tribe membership actually is something that takes work to get. And
Yeah, so I mean, I don't know if you guys want to do final thoughts on this, if you guys have anything else to add. But I mean, I would just say, to sum it up for me, I think, Steve, you hit the nail right on the head. I don't necessarily always agree that there's some grand liberal agenda here, conservative agenda there, blah, 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 blah. Everything goes back and forth. But I will say, every time I feel like I hear any kind of evidence presented that supports the Redskins name, it is very quickly discredited, deflected, downplayed. That really definitely seems to be the case, and this is no different. It's like you get a poll out, and immediately 50 people stand up to tear it down. So I do think a little bit of that is going on here. I don't find the poll as invalid as everybody else does, but that it is what it is.
Dan Steinberg had a funny tweet on that about how somebody wrote that the Washington Post is in bed with the Redskins because of the stadium, and the Post wants a new stadium. And I mean, if there's any 2 people in D.C. who hate each other more than the Washington Post editorial board and Dan Snyder, I don't know who they are.
Exactly.
It's Republicans and Democrats and then them. That's how it kind of.
Hey, there's some Republicans and Democrats that get along, so I don't know if they're ahead of Snyder and the Post.
I'm just saying those are the 2 big rivalries in the area. My only thought on the poll is I got quoted in the Washington Post about it, and I'm bracketed between ESPN columnist and Susan Harjo. So I consider myself now as valid as them. So I'm at least Boumani Jones level.
Thanks for mentioning the Hogstein.
I saw that. That was
appreciate it.
I did mention it in my comments to the writer. They cut it out.
You are not as important,
of course,
as we want to be mentioned. Sorry.
My final thoughts are basically, I'm glad to see the results show up the way they did. It means if it means anything closer to us keeping the name without it changing, then great. But I hate that it just stirs up the conversation again and more bashing of the organization and the how racist people think it really is. I just let it be. It's a football team.
You just wait until we make it further into the postseason, and then this will reach a cacophony unparalleled.
I do think this is going to settle it down, kind of like what happened 12 years ago.
I hope
it'll come
so,
back in a
dude.
decade. That's just how politics
the
is.
Mayans predicted that this issue would come back in cycles.
My final thought to it is kind of what Alex said, which is that if nothing else, the poll will embolden Dan Snyder to stick up for the name even more. And so it's going to buy us another several years at a minimum before, it comes back, in full force, I think. Depending on, we've talked about that. We're not going to get into this today, but, the stuff with the patent lawsuit, the trademark lawsuit is a big deal.
There was a great article about that, by the way, Steve.
Yeah.
You should definitely go.
I hadn't seen it.
I don't know
No,
if
I hadn't
you did.
seen it.
Okay. I'll try and remind me after. I'll see if I can find it for you.
Yeah, we've got to do a quick update next episode maybe on any changes on that front. But moving on from there then, let's move on to getting hardcore into the team here. I believe we've got some inside linebacker breakdowns to do. Is that correct?
The Redskins Position Group Breakdown.
Well, let's get right on into it. So what's the deal? Let's go over the position groups as we are so prepared and so used to doing. Let's break it down how things have changed here in the offseason and what we're going into here into the next season. Because as we said, OTAs are starting next week. Exciting time.
All right, so presumably our starters are Will Compton and Mason Foster, at least right now. That's what we're looking at. The other guys we have at inside linebacker are Terrence Garvin, who we signed over the offseason, special teams player. Adam Hayward is returning back from his injury. Willie Jefferson, just a no-name guy. I think he was an undrafted free agent. Martrell Spate, returning from his season-ending concussion. And we also got Mike Wakefield. Interesting group of people. Stephen Daniels, our 7th-round draft pick. Anybody else I'm missing?
Did you say Derek Matthews? Did you mention
I
him?
don't think so. I don't see him.
He was on the Spotrac roster, the contract roster that Spotrac printed.
Could he be somebody we hadn't cut?
Maybe the Redskins website may not have
I tend to
updated that
frankly believe Spotrac more so than the Redskins website sometimes isn't updated regularly.
Well, so as you go through those names, Robbie, I'm struck by the overwhelming feeling that is in, how we say, somewhat uninspiring group. Do you get that feeling as well as you go through them? I mean, I don't see a huge standout there, especially when you're talking about guys that aren't just going to be playing special teams, but the guys who are actually going to play inside linebacker during the game. Doesn't seem like I mean, it seems like we're going to have a major hole there at inside linebacker, and people are going to still be breaking through to the secondary all year.
See, I don't know. I mean, I like Will Compton. I like Mason Foster. I like the chemistry that they have, but are they legitimate starters? I mean, I think Will Compton is pretty solid, but I wouldn't say he's London Fletcher again, But
no, they feel like stopgap.
Well, I'll
guys.
give you
They
two numbers that will demonstrate the status of our inside linebacker core. Okay, the first number is 11.1. The second number is 4.63. Now that is the percentage of cap used on defensive line versus inside linebackers. And full disclosure, Robbie, I didn't have Wakefield on my chart, but I can't imagine he was anything more than a mid-contract guy. Okay, and so what that and we'll have it. It needs to be said that there's twice as many people on the defensive line right now as inside linebackers. But it is if you even that out, they've spent significantly less money on the inside linebacker core than the defensive line. And what that means is we're in the process of rebuilding the defensive line, and they haven't really gotten to inside linebacker yet.
You know what's funny, Steve? When you said 11 point something and 11.1 and 4.3 or whatever it was, I thought that was going to be the average yards gained on first down by opposing teams last year.
Well, that might have been the case.
I really thought you were going to say that and make that a huge argument about how our inside linebacker core is so shitty, but it works either way, I guess.
I was just going to say on that, I agree we're rebuilding our linebacker core, but the one thing is it's also inside linebackers are not utilized as much in our defense as, outside linebackers or the way they're
true.
used. It undervalues the position.
I don't
in
agree
general.
with that at all. I mean, the edge rushers
Really?
get a lot of attention because we need pass rushers. But in a 4-3 base 4-3 setup, it is designed to funnel tackles to the inside linebackers.
But we're in a base 3-4.
Well, I didn't mean
how often
4-3.
are we actually in that?
3-4. I mean, it's designed. When you have an extra linebacker out there, the 4 linebackers, it's designed to funnel tackles. The nose tackle clogs up the middle, and it frees up the inside linebackers to make tackles. I think it's not devalued in our system. I just think we haven't found the players that they want yet. Will Compton's our start. He's on a 1-year, $600,000 contract. Mason Foster is our other starter. He's making
900 something, right?
Yeah, his cap hit's $1.1 million because he had a $350,000 signing bonus. But point is, and Foster was a productive player in Miami before he came to us, for sure.
Yeah.
3rd round draft pick. Yeah. He's not a slouch, but we just haven't. We don't have the Josh Norman of linebackers. We haven't found him yet.
Which begs the question, what we have in our returning guy, Martrell Spate, is he just a special teams guy? Do they see him as a guy with potential that could, become a starter? What do they think about Steven Daniels? Do they think he can come in surprise like Alfred Morris did at running back? You watch the tape. Steven Daniels was a very instinctive, hard-hitting, role-playing linebacker. Like he was a tackle machine, and he'd hit people. You wonder what kind of competition they're really looking at this year. And
the big name is Perry Riley.
Yeah,
Perry Riley's Perry Riley's got a $5 million cap hit this year. And so this is another guy we talked about last time about Stephen Paya. They're not going to keep Perry Riley on the roster as a backup at $5 million. If he gets outplayed, that dude is going to be gone at some point. Maybe not this year, but they're not going to keep him on if he can't start at that price point.
Yeah, if he loses the competition to start, then he'll probably won't be on the roster. But
yeah,
he's the only player at that position with full-time starting experience. If you think about it, he's the only
Mason
one.
Foster
have started at least 16 games each at this point.
Yeah, but
I thought they only closed out seasons as starters.
No, I'll give you Foster's starting. He started 15 games in 2011, started all 16 in 2012, started 13 in 2014, and then played in 10, started 10. So he was pretty much a full-time starter for 4 years in Miami.
Okay,
not Miami. I meant Tampa, not Miami.
Yeah. Florida.
Tampa.
Yeah,
it was still the same state. Robbie, I'd like to ask you, I'd like to go back to my point. Am I right about the usage of inside linebackers in the 3-4, or is Alex right?
What did Alex say?
I say that they're kind of underutilized in our system.
Devalued.
I said it's designed to make the inside linebackers look good in our system.
It is designed to open up lanes so they can get all the tackles and stuff. I mean, the D-line, at least in the 3-4 package, are just role players, space eaters to open up lanes for the linebackers. But I don't know. They're not. It's not a special group, like we said. The one person we do need to kind of add into the mix here too is Sua Cravens. Even though he's listed as a strong safety, he will be playing some inside linebacker, quote unquote, when we get to like nickel and dime packages. I even think eventually he could beef up and become an inside linebacker. Be our sideline to sideline type cover linebacker eventually. But right now he's only like what, 220?
Yeah.
He's the size of a safety.
Enough.
So right now he's not. There's no way he could be a real full-time inside linebacker. But
is that much different from a lot of inside linebackers? They're in the low end is 220 for a linebacker these days. Still
that's pretty small for an inside linebacker.
In a base 3-4, that's small. You want him to be like 240 or 235. Yeah.
I think that the person we're undervaluing here is Mason Foster. We just talked about him. But this is not an undrafted free agent who's kind of outplaying his, outkicking the coverage, so to speak. This is not like in baseball where you have a guy who was drafted in the 20th round and, hits well for a year or two and all of a sudden he's on the big league roster. This is a 3rd-round draft pick, 4-year starter who came to us in free agency and became a starter himself.
Yeah.
I think of all these guys, I don't think he's going to be a Pro Bowler, but I think Mason Foster is a guy who could be a long-term who has the pedigree, shall we say, to be a long-term starter for us.
So do you cut Perry Riley to save the money and then just roll with him then?
If he doesn't beat Will Compton out. But I mean, it needs to be said that Perry Riley, before he got hurt last season, kind of came alive. I mean, he was making plays.
Yeah, he had a pick in one game, I remember.
Yeah, he had that crazy interception that he got. He was playing above his normal, I guess, his average play. He was playing at a different level before he got hurt.
But you want to hear some Perry Riley stats?
Sure.
Career stats? Okay, he's been with us since 2010. Didn't play in 2010. But his best 2 years were 2012 and 13. 70 solo tackles, 55 assisted tackles, 72 solo tackles in 2013, 43 assisted tackles. So he's been productive, I think, but he just flat out got outplayed last year, along with his injury.
Right.
Don't forget, we gave him a second contract. He is on a second contract. So the team thought enough of him to do that in an era when we didn't give anybody a second contract. Right. This is pre-Scott McLuhan. So they did see potential in Perry Riley. He's just too expensive for him to not be a starter.
I don't necessarily think he won't be I think he might not be a starter, but I think he'll still get a lot of play time. When I look at the three who are, coming back this year, Foster, Compton, and Riley, I think none of them is a complete package at linebacker. But if you add them together, you can put together a complete package at linebacker. Riley is easily the best run stopper, no question about that. But you can't really rely on him in coverage. That was his big problem his whole career is you put a fast tight end on him and he's done.
Yeah, he's basically a two-down backer.
Right. Compton always had that speed where he could get end-to-end better and do a little bit more in the coverage. And Foster's the obvious, the most, receiver coverage. Like, he can drop back in zone pretty easily. So I think you have three guys who complement each other really well. You just got to use them right.
Yeah.
Well, Robbie, correct me if I'm wrong here, but when Perry Riley was playing, he was the jack backer, not the Mike backer, for a reason, which is that's the guy who stays near the line and doesn't drop back in coverage quite as much. Right. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right.
Because they're recognizing that is a limitation of his game. If he was better at it, he'd have been the Mike backer. At the amount they were paying him, he would have definitely been the Mike backer. But he just can't do that.
He wasn't nearly as athletic as Keenan Robinson was, though. So that's why Robinson was the Mike, because he could do. He had ability to cover, but he wasn't great at it either. But he was better at it than Perry Riley.
Man,
was.
he dropped.
I don't think the guys we have now are great at it either, for that matter. No. I don't think any of them are particularly good at it.
No.
Right, exactly. We might just have to accept that that's going to be a hole in the team moving into the next year, and it'll be interesting to see if we stick with that rotation that Alex was talking about, or if McLuhan decides that the price we're paying him could be better, used elsewhere. Because I think that might be more of a deciding factor than anything.
Well, the other X factor, like Robbie said, is Martrell Sprade.
Yeah,
because they kind of.
How can you know anything about what you have there?
Yeah.
Well, it was interesting what they did with him. If you guys remember, he had a concussion in the early couple games of the season. Yeah. And all of a sudden, he was on IR for the whole season for concussion. It was, I think, they kind of used his injury as an excuse to stash him away, where they wouldn't have to cut him. They want to develop him, but they knew he wasn't ready, and so I think that shows they do think a lot of him, but they never recognize that he has a long way to go.
An old
Otherwise, they
Gibbs
just would have gotten
move.
rid of him.
Like back in the 80s, Gibbs did that. I think he did that with Mark Rippon his first year, where he stashed him on the injured list, and
Basically,
it's a classic.
It basically was a redshirt year, like in college.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, it's a classic Major League Baseball move. You have a pitcher who's struggling, and all of a sudden he comes down with like a calf injury. And they'll send him away for a DL stint to work on his game. That's kind of what happened to Spade, I think.
Yeah,
I mean, I'm a Spade fan. I like what he does on special teams. He plays with a lot of energy. When he makes a play, he's full of passion and emotion. He just is all over the place after he makes a big tackle. Whether he can really do the full job at linebacker, who knows? But
he's way too on it. He's like a 5th round pick last year or something like that, or 4th round maybe.
Spade?
I think he was
5th.
Yeah.
I thought he was even later.
He might have even been later. I don't remember. It was down there. See, he's so much of a question mark for me. I don't even want to analyze his game because who knows.
Very raw.
I mean, to me, when I talk about who we have, it's obvious that we have three guys who all can be starters. None of them are studs, but they're all at least NFL average linebackers.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like we have 3 guys that can chip in.
Right.
We don't have anybody who can really take it over, but we have 3 guys who can contribute in a rotation.
We don't have Patrick. Patrick Willis is not in Redskins
There's no Patrick
Park.
Willis.
No, he's
we
not.
don't have a London Fletcher.
Don't even have a Keenan Robinson, as we were just saying, too.
Yeah. Well,
which,
but
by the way, I miss you.
Keenan
Keenan.
Robinson looked bad last year.
I'm not heartbroken about him going.
No.
Yeah.
He looked bad last year. He looked like he was just lost.
He looked bad after, like, the first
After
couple.
the Rams game, he fell off.
Then he fell off completely. Though I still feel like he got benched and out of the game completely really fast. But anyway, that's neither here nor there.
I still loved that play of his where he chased down Tavon Austin on that end around reverse play. Just
Chased him all the way down across the field. Yeah.
Oh, what should be said about Keenan Robinson is he kind of became our thug on the field.
Yeah.
Exactly. Clotheslining motherfuckers.
Yeah, he was mean.
Yeah. For those of you who don't like the term thug, I don't mean it in any other way than just, the guy who's out there that was causing a little havoc. You need a couple bad boys.
The Ron Artest kind of, you don't
defense.
want to get in his face.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that was kind of Keenan, and I don't know which one of these guys is going to do that for us.
Steven
We need
Daniels.
somebody. I don't know.
Maybe.
I mean, I hope so, but we may be overvaluing the 7th-round pick,
I'll
be.
tell you who kind of takes on that bad boy role for our defense right now is Norman.
Exactly.
I think
it fits him.
He's a corner, but look at what happened with him in the Giants.
Yeah, he's not
Yeah,
afraid
but
to
you know
draw with
what?
you. Throw a couple shows.
There's a reason why the hockey enforcers are low paid. Josh Norman can at $12 million a year cannot be the guy who's out there getting penalties.
Yeah, you can't get him suspended.
No.
That's true.
It can't be him. It needs to be like Martrell Sprate, not Josh Norman.
That's fair.
Although I'll say, in those games, him and versus Becken, the ref seemed a little... They didn't throw that many penalties. I think they were having just as much fun as the rest of us watching those two go at it the whole game. But I agree. If he comes here, and we know that the refs love to throw the penalty on the Redskins, so if he comes here and adds to that problem, it's going to be a major issue. But
The Giants-Redskins games are going to be much must-see TV.
God, those are going to be good.
No doubt.
NFL is probably going to flex both of them to be like a primetime game.
If they
I would
can.
think.
Yeah, as they should.
Certainly, if at least one of the teams are good this year, you got to think the first Norman Beckham matchup is going to be primetime somehow.
Oh, that's
some
got to
way.
be huge.
When do we? Do you guys know off the top of your head? When is the first Giants game?
Hold up real quick.
It's earlier this year than
pulling
previous.
that up. I mean, to get back to the linebackers a little bit, I'm not as low on the Compton-Foster combination we had in the end of the season as other people seem to be. I think those two have a chemistry together. They played well together.
Week 3, by the way.
Okay, week 3.
Yeah, and
Okay.
it's a
Is it a day
It's
game?
a 1:00 game, and so is the
Okay, so
is the last game of the season, a 1:00 game.
So they can't flex the week
Right.
3 game, so that won't be prime
Right,
time.
but they can make
Last-
that the game of the week.
Week 17 could be.
Yeah, they could flex the last game though. But to your point, Alex, about Compton and Foster, I'm not negative on them either. I thought they played very well. I thought Compton in particular developed. Foster kind of has a history and had an expectation of playing well, but I don't think we have. And Patrick Willis is not a reasonable expectation, but we don't have the ultra athletic star linebacker. We don't have the guy.
Luke
out
Kuechly,
there
we don't
yet.
have that.
So
I get it.
Luke,
yeah, it wouldn't surprise me if they don't draft an inside linebacker high
Next year.
Yeah.
Well, they did play well, but I remember someone pointing out that statistically they weren't very good. They had their flashy moments making solid tackles. I think Mason Foster had that one really nice tackle for a loss of yards, big chunk of yards they lost. But statistically, they still weren't up to par, what you need them to be. So,
well, results speak for themselves. I mean, our run defense was, by some advanced statistical measures, they were the worst run defense in the league.
yeah.
And I think we were 29th or 30th in yards
Per game.
average yards per carry surrendered, yards per carry. And that's, you got to blame the middle linebackers in a large part on that.
Yeah.
But I would just say that if you look at, and it helps that in the back half of the season we started winning a lot. So maybe I'm looking at it through that perspective too much. But once those two and they've developed a very good chemistry. If you follow them on social media, they interact a lot
they're
and hang out
BFFs.
together.
They're always, they're going back and
Yeah.
forth constantly.
So
If you guys aren't following Will
Yeah.
Compton, the dude is hilarious
Yeah.
on Twitter.
Yeah.
Just as a random plug.
And
Do we know his Twitter handle?
I think it's Will Compton.
He's not a creative person, clearly. All right, cool.
Yeah, but
I don't know what it is, but he's hilarious. You guys need to
It's
follow
underscore Will Compton.
underscore Will Compton.
There you go. Well, see, look, I think we all agree that they're good guys, they're funny guys, but I think we all also agree that neither one of them's established themselves, and that's one of the position groups is probably going to clarify itself a little bit as the offseason rolls along, and that's one of the ones we're probably not going to know exactly what it looks like until season starts. So, I mean, unless... Go ahead.
Yeah, Will Compton's still growing, you know. I mean,
Yeah.
you know, you guys out there, don't forget he was, I mean, you guys know this, but for the listeners, he was an undrafted free agent. He wasn't expected to make the roster at all. He only played one game in his rookie year, and he's slowly built up to the point where, you know, he's getting playing time, but it was sort of by default, you know,
a little
more than anything. He got his shot, and he capitalized on it. But this is not a guy who, you know, this is, again, he's not a star. He's probably not going to be a star.
I've always been impressed with his game speed, though. From the first time he played for us in his rookie preseason games, I've always kind of noticed that guy has, like, he just knows how to get around the ball quickly.
Maybe, who knows, maybe he picks another big jump in development and becomes a very reliable starter this year. Who knows?
I just, looking at it from a salary cap perspective, it would not surprise me if, because we have not, other than Perry Riley, nobody is getting big money. It would not surprise me if we spend some money on inside linebackers somehow, some way next offseason.
Yeah, I think all of us had them taking an inside linebacker a little higher, like relatively high in the draft, I think.
Yeah. Well, I think we all are hoping that Stephen Daniels is a breath of fresh air, and maybe he will. You know, but I just, you got to temper expectations on the 7th rounders to come in and be, you know,
no, Steve. Every Scott McLuhan pick is a first ballot Hall of Famer.
There you go.
Yeah, the dude can do no wrong, despite a history of doing some things wrong.
Yeah.
Well, anyways.
Yeah, I mean, shoot, you know, crack a beer for the guy because he has drafted some
studs.
Yeah, he has.
Oh God, I think
please don't crack a beer for him because you know that whole alcohol thing.
He's his success rate is like 50%, I think, in the draft last year. If we keep that up, we'll have an all-star team in pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'm not against 50%. We were dealing with 10%.
Yeah, or less.
Prior to that, so I'm not against every other guy being a solid pick. But anyways, maybe we should move on from our position group breakdown here and talk about our final two things, the quick little things that we have on the agenda. So we have a poll, but I think we also have a follower question, a request to go into something called voidable contracts. And Steve, I have to ask, did you submit this question?
No. Matt Robbie is the one that saw him on Twitter. He asked us, pardon me?
Lou Venturi. I think that's how you pronounce his last name.
Lou Venturi.
That's a name that Steve invented when he made a fake Twitter account and then tweeted this question. No. I'm just kidding.
It is not me. Lou Venturi, I don't have it in front of him, but basically asked, what's the deal with voidable years in NFL contracts? Why do teams like them? Here's the deal with voidable years. It's a salary cap maneuver, and that's it. How it works is Josh Morgan had one of these a few years ago for the Redskins. How it works is it is a 5-year contract, but the last X number of years, say last 2 years, are either automatically voided by contract or voidable by the team. And the reason they do this is it is a way to spread out the cap hit for guaranteed money up front. Because if you get, I'll make up a number.
$100 million.
Say it's a 5-year contract and there's a $25 million signing bonus. Okay, if you give them and you know that you really only want 3 years. If you have a 3-year contract, the salary cap hit is going to be over $8 million a year when accounting for the signing bonus. If you do a 5-year contract with 2 years at void, the salary cap hit drops to $5 million a year. And then once you cut the guy in year 3 after the year's void, then you just accelerate the rest. So all it is, Lou, is a salary cap maneuver that allows the team to stretch out and lessen the cap hit per year.
But it still allows you. It still allows you if you want to void the end and just get rid of the contract.
So
yes,
early.
Steve, just a follow-up question. I assume from the perspective of the voidable years, it's a lot like a player option or a team option. I think the NBA has that, Major League Baseball has that. where you can say this year either the player can void the contract or the team can void the contract, however the language is structured, right?
Yeah, it's not quite an option because in an option, we don't really have they don't have options first of all in the NFL. Yeah, but the option is not a active contractual year, for lack of a better term. An option means that the team can pick up this year and then it can become a contracted year, whereas the voidable years, 2 year NFL contracts that void, they are already part of the contract. It just by the terms of the contract they go away if something triggers it. The team can void it. Some of them automatically void. We had somebody a few years ago that had an automatically voiding contract. I can't remember who it was. So it's not the same as an option. No, it's a slightly different.
It was the receiver, the local guy. I can't remember.
Well, it was Josh Morgan. Yeah, I couldn't remember if his automatically voided or what. But yeah, Josh Morgan had a voidable year. So the point to sum it up here, it's a salary cap trick that allows the team to spread out the cap hit for the guaranteed money up front. That's
Makes
what
sense.
it is.
Steve, I was told there'd be no math. This is bullshit. No, very interesting. It never ceases to amaze the outroads and the little off ramps that exist in these contracts. I mean, they're never as simple as you think they are, and everybody has to be careful and protect themselves. So
I think a lot of fans get spoiled by how it's all like in Madden. It's very simple,
right?
And real contracts are nothing like that.
Yeah.
Well, we have a really good contract guy in Eric Schaefer with the Redskins. He's a wizard. I mean, Bruce Allen gets the credit for it, but it's really Eric Schaefer is the genius.
Well, but Schaefer works for Allen.
Yeah, I know. You give the leader the credit, but I'm just saying the guy who's doing the day-to-day nuts and bolts of it is Eric Schaefer.
But Allen has, in the past, I know in Tampa, he was also known as a very smart contract guy.
Yes.
So,
without a doubt,
I mean,
yes.
that he has an underling that's smart too just means we have two super smart contract guys.
So you can hate Bruce Allen all you want, but he's an asset.
Right.
And Schaefer.
Bruce Allen is a good team president. You just don't want him touching the roster. That's the bottom line with Bruce.
Well, it definitely seems like we've got the pieces in the right places these days, because it seems like the roster is improving and the salary cap situation has been a lot less dismal than in years past. So
pretty solid structure, really.
Yeah. So great things there. God, I hope we can lock these guys in for long. Like, I hope we can keep McLuhan around for a while, and we can keep this, Bruce Allen and his underlings together for a while, in the positions that they're in, because it seems to be doing good things.
Honestly, the thing with McLuhan, you got to make sure his personal demons don't rise up again.
Give him what he needs, please, Dan.
That's what sunk him in Seattle and San Francisco. Both were his demons, and we just got to hope that it doesn't come back.
And in terms of Bruce Allen, I'm pretty sure he's here till he dies or doesn't want to be here anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah, which
Bruce
gotta
ain't
love
going
that.
anywhere.
Until he runs for president.
Yeah.
I feel like he could. He's very much a politician. He'll run for
That would be his brother. That would be his brother.
No, his brother's done.
Yeah, that's true.
Well,
hey, we've forgotten something, guys.
That's right. We have another thing. So, Allen family drama.
No, not the poll. Not the poll. We have the poll, but we have gone an entire show and not mentioned the fact that the one player that the fans have hated is now gone. Andre Roberts got cut this week.
That's right.
There was so much other nonsense that happened this week. There's real news.
Why?
Exactly. Come on. Is Andre Roberts getting? You had to have expected that, right? I mean, we had to have been expecting that over the last week or so.
The nail in the coffin.
Absolutely. Well, and the money.
I think
the money had to be raised.
In the East was the nail in the coffin.
And setting in the West.
Roberts had a contract that was paid him like a number 2 receiver, and once Deshaun Jackson came in, he was not a number 2 receiver, and furthermore, his play showed that he could never be a number 2 receiver because he's not explosive and he has bad hands.
Yeah.
So his fate was sealed. Last year, the reason he stuck on the roster last year, people, we told you this last offseason, is that his contract did not allow him to be cut.
Right.
This year, his contract did allow him to be cut. He was just hurt, which is why it took him so long.
And last year, he became the 4th and 5th receiver. So,
yeah. But I just remember many times, when the guy had some space and he does not have the physical ability to explode and accelerate away.
Not just that, not great hands. I remember looking at his numbers when his cut was announced. And like 50% of the balls thrown his way, he had either dropped or he didn't get to them or whatever.
Yeah, his drop rate is one of the worst in the NFL.
Yeah. Plus he gets in fistfights with Bashad Breeland at practice.
He did.
Yeah, yeah. You don't remember that from
that.
last year? He got in a fist
No.
fight with Breland, and it's like, come on, dude. How are you going to fight like the most beloved Redskins of last year's offseason? Way to play yourself off the team. But no, I think everything that you guys said, absolutely. I mean, Doxson was a nail in the coffin. I think Norman's contract was a nail in the coffin.
Crowder,
because you got
rising.
Crowder. Yeah, his emergence last year was a nail in the coffin. All these things.
I think more than anything, it's the presence of Doxson.
Oh yeah, but
Doxson is
we have our
what
three
sealed his fate.
receivers locked up for the future. So
Definitely.
Yeah.
There just wasn't any room
I mean,
for him.
Doxson's a rookie.
Yeah.
You never know. But I mean, I think the fact that Jamison Crowder proved himself to be an NFL player, also makes Roberts
Right.
expendable.
Yeah.
Because you can't spend that kind of money on a guy who's going to be even the fourth receiver. Forget about Doxson.
Right.
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 Now, I will say I expect to see Roberts on another team before the start of the season. I would expect him
Probably.
to
He
He had a
sign.
visit with the Bills not the other day, I think.
Yes.
Yeah, he did.
See,
Yeah.
I won't be surprised. I feel like he's going to get a starting job.
I don't wish him ill will.
No, of course not.
I mean, good luck to you.
I don't think he'll get a starting job. I think he'll get a shot to play.
Yeah, I think he actually has a good, decent chance of ending up on a starting roster. I agree it's going to be a competition thing throughout the offseason, but I expect we'll see more of him. I know he played really poorly here. There's a lot of reasons for that. He did have terrible hands, though.
You think he's going to Brandon Lloyd us?
Maybe. Hey, maybe. You never know. I do agree, though. He
I
had
doubt
terrible
that.
hands last year, though, which is going to hurt.
He needs to learn how to catch the ball more often if he's going to ever become a solid.
I mean, was that a
starter.
problem in Arizona for him, or was that just one of the Redskins' juju got
Now,
to
for
him?
him in Arizona, he was just like He
He had one good year.
He had Larry Fitzgerald and Anquan Bolden. He was.
Yeah.
They took all the heat away from him, so he had a lot of opportunities to make plays. I mean,
He was facing up against third string corners.
Yeah, we had
That's a great
Garcon
point.
and Jackson, but they're not Larry Fitzgerald and Anquan Bolden, at least in their prime. There's a different type of receivers that need different types of attention.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
I expect
Fair
we'll see
enough.
him again. Good luck to you, Andre. Pleasure having you, bud. Sure didn't mind watching you go. So let's move on.
Hasta la vista.
Yeah, hasta la vista, exactly. So let's move on from there. I believe we had another patented Hogsty poll, right, Steve?
Yes,
Woohoo!
this has become our weekly thing, weekly interact with the listeners thing. This week's poll: if the Redskins ever change the team name, would you remain a fan?
Would I stay a fan?
Oh, let me give the categories. Sorry, here are the categories before you answer it. The categories were: yes, that's my team name, period. No, it's Redskins or nothing. Yes, but I'd reluctantly stay a fan. And then yes, but the name should change. So those were the four categories.
Okay. I think I am going to say C, which would be I'd reluctantly stay a fan if they changed the name. Now, you might say, if you're so reluctant about it, are you a true fan? And I understand that. But to me, their identity as the Redskins, their historical identity, since 1932 or whatever it is, does mean a lot to me. Does mean something to me. If they became something else, it just wouldn't be the same. So I would continue to be a fan, but it would be, that would be a blow to my fandom for sure. Oh, and as far as my prediction goes, I'm going to predict that the vast majority of people said the same thing, that they would remain fans, but they'd be pissed about it more or less.
I went C too. I don't like the word reluctantly. I'm more apprehensive as to what the new name would be.
Right,
in
that a
theory.
lot hinges on that, right?
Yeah, a lot of it would hinge on that because, one, I don't want to see new uniforms, especially there's a faction out there, and I know I'm probably in a minority here. I can't stand the idea that they would change to something and have a big American flag uniform.
God, yeah.
I think it would look tacky and ridiculous, and that's not what I'd want to see happen to our team. I would hope that if the name were to change, we stick with kind of the same colors, a lot of the same kind of symbolism.
Agreed.
If you could. I mean, not necessarily the Native American if it had
The
to
color
change,
scheme
but
is non-negotiable. Now, I'll tell you what. You can go ahead and get rid of the yellow
Yeah.
pants if you want to. Just throwing that out there. You can just toss the yellow pants to the
Well,
side.
but keep burgundy and gold as the color
Absolutely.
scheme.
That's non-negotiable.
Yeah.
You got to keep the fucking burgundy and gold. I mean, come on, it's Gryffindor. You've got to keep the burgundy and gold.
See, all right, I basically would be. This is my team, no matter what. I mean, if the name did change, yeah, I'd be upset and very disappointed, but I wouldn't reluctantly still be a fan. This DC team is still my team, you know? I that would not change for me in the slightest. I would
fair.
get over it after a while, but yeah, I'm with this team. Ride or die, you know.
Now, what if they trotted out onto the field, Robbie, with stupid Star Spangled Banner pants and some ugly kitschy cheesy flag jersey? I mean, would that are you really just saying, no matter what, it's my team? What if it's something really stupid like the Wizards?
I mean, yeah, that's the team. I've been born and raised to follow and love the Redskins, and that's the team. If it did change, yeah, it would suck, but that's who I am.
Hell no, I completely agree with you. I'm just trying to throw the worst case scenario at you.
Well, I mean, even that's not the worst case. There are even worse.
Yeah,
cases
like hot
than
pink
that.
or some really stupid color.
The good question to ask would be like you'd ask a bunch of Seattle Supersonic fans if they're still Thunder fans. That'd be a good question to ask. It would be a good correlation. I mean, yeah, they moved away, but still,
Probably most of them probably are
it
not.
still technically is their team with a name.
It's not
change.
their team. Well, it's not their team. It's in Oklahoma now.
Well,
Yeah.
It's not their team.
Their team moved to a different city.
I can tell you
yeah.
point blank, if my team moved away, it would not be my team. Period. If you leave the city, no, you're not my team anymore. That's just how I feel.
Yeah, I think that's probably a common thing.
Yeah.
There are a lot of ex-Colts.
That's what
fans in
exactly what I was
Baltimore,
going to say.
for
My
example.
mom's whole family
Yeah.
betrayed by the Colts.
Well, and in Houston, there are people who appreciate the history of the Oilers, but they're all Texans fans now. None of them are Tennessee Titans fans, which is what
No.
the team became. None.
Although there are people like my wife from Houston who is still bitter about the
Yeah.
Oilers
They're bitter,
moving.
but they're not.
Yeah.
They didn't follow them to Tennessee. Okay, here's the.
No.
You guys want to hear the results?
yeah, hit us with it.
Well, first of all, my opinion of it, I'm in the Sean category. I would be a fan, but reluctantly, because it would really bother me.
Yeah.
It's the team of my youth, and it's the Redskins, and I would really have a hard time. I don't think I could ever abandon the team, but I would really have a hard time. I probably would not use the new name.
Yeah, just keep
I'd
calling
probably
them Redskins.
always call them. That's probably me. Okay, so the results: 67% said yes, that's my team. Period. No matter what.
Oh, you chumps.
15% yes, but reluctantly. A full 14% said no, I wouldn't be a fan. It's Redskins or nothing.
Wow.
And then a small but vocal minority, as we've already discussed, 4% said yes, I would be a fan, but yes, the Redskins' name should change. We had one comment, a guy, and I'm going to try and find it here. Oh, yeah, here it is. A guy by the name of Hog Domination, who goes by Manly72, said, I've spent thousands of bucks on Redskins gear and memories. I'd be furious at more PC nonsense and would boycott. So that's
Did he use
one.
nonsense or did you clean it up?
I cleaned it up because
Nice.
as you guys know, I don't tend to use those kind of words, and so I did clean.
I kind of expected more of that opinion.
Yeah, that
Majority
doesn't
agrees with me.
surprise me right now.
Yeah. See, I would have expected people to be more outraged. Maybe I'm not giving
Yeah,
people
the
enough
majority
credit.
did agree with you. Like here's another comment I'll read. Joe Mercer goes by Styles McFresh. So
Styles
that's,
McFresh.
there's your
Nice.
yeah. He said what should fans be loyal to? A name, a symbol. I'm loyal to the team and always will be. Nothing could change that. So that's kind of that's Robbie's opinion. Here's one in the middle. Chris Hunter 3644. Still my team and I'm torn. Love the fact that an actual Indian is on the helmet. I hate the term Redskins due to its origin. So there's a guy who's torn.
And I understand that too.
I'm basically in the same with Chris Hunter. I'd be really torn.
Right.
Oh, here's
I think anyone who, if you're not going to be hardcore like about the whole name change debate, you're probably in that like understanding the torn side
Right.
of it.
I've got two more comments to read because
Okay,
I thought
go ahead.
they were good. One was John Lightfoot said couldn't watch football again without Redskins. So there's another guy who's willing to give it up. But the funny one
Sounds like a native name.
it might have been. I don't know if I can find it. Oh, I had it. Sorry, guys. Oh, here it is. CLT Redskin fans, at CLT Redskin fans. Where's the option for don't care, stop being a dead horse? It's a mess already.
Fair enough.
So he's the guy that says, why are you asking this question? I hate the fact that you're talking about it. Just shut up.
Well, the other question idea we had was about Robert Griffin.
It's
So
like, yeah, two most unpopular
we
topics.
thought we'd take less heat for this question than the Robert Griffin question.
Yeah. No, I actually think it's totally topical that we include this question because, look, this issue's not going away. We've got lawsuits pending, and obviously this poll has just come out. Yep. So, I mean, it's on people's minds, and as long as it continues to be a hotly debated topic, I think we can, we'll continue to do what we can to guide people through the ongoing debate that never seems to end here.
The saga.
Sean, you seem to really like Styles McFresh, don't you?
I really enjoy Styles McFresh. I'm gonna even.
He just for the listeners out here. Sean just sent a note out to us in our note function here that says how awesome Styles McFresh is.
I mean, that's a
maybe
pretty
great
name.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So Sean's gonna get his own Twitter handle just to friend Styles.
I mean, yeah, because that's come on, guys. Styles McFresh. That's pretty fucking cool.
Yeah.
So maybe we'll wrap it there. But everybody, in the meantime, we'll see you guys a week from now with a new episode. But do your best Styles McFresh impression. Stay cool. Stay classy, ladies and gentlemen at home. And we'll be back with you to guide you through this ever ongoing off season of turbulent change and exciting signs of hope. So thanks for being with us. Y'all take
With
care.
arms wide open.
Perfect.
Eddie Vedder doing Creed.
Yeah.
Perfect. End on a Creed note. What could be better?